Oh, hello there. Didn't see you crawling around under my table. Hi, Alexa. We've got an unpaired team. Hey, Cheesy, thank you. I hope the same for you. All right. So here's what we're looking at. 3, 4, 5, 6. And we've got one unpaired team with a very high rating, Baron and Gorkum. Okay. Hey, Baron. We got to get you an opponent, Baron? All right. So we just need one more team. Probably Leafia's team will be good. Who you got, Leafia? Do you have a second? You got a compadre to pair with you? Yeah, you need somebody who you know so that you can voice chat with them or whatever. So you can discuss your moves together. Basil, you can play? Are you cool pairing up with Leafia and doing voice chat on Discord or something like that? Hey, Race to GM. We're playing consultation matches. And we need one more team. Because we've got one pair of players who don't have an opposing team just yet. Alexa's got it figured out. Okay. This is wonderful. Alexa and perhaps Pooh Bear as well are just in the background making this thing work. So that's really cool for me. So I don't need to worry about it. You guys can watch the chat, and if there's anybody late, you can sort of bring them in. The way this is going to work for anybody wondering about the rules is it's going to start in 1 minute, Leafia. The way it works is you're going to be chatting with a teammate. So you'll all be paired up in teams of 2. Arguing with somebody else may be a really different experience for you, buddy. So you pair up with a teammate and you guys talk together live during the match about what you want to play. You'll be playing against another team of 2 that are doing the same thing, right? Think Count Isidore and Duke of Brunswick playing against Morphe, right? Those two were talking together I think we should play knight h6. No, I think we should play knight a6. Well, how about compromise? We play e5. Okay, fine, we'll play e5. It didn't work well for them, but they were playing Paul Morphy. None of you are going to have to play Paul Morphy today. Today's your day to impersonate them, Samuel. So basically, you have to have somebody that you feel comfortable doing some kind of a voice chat with online for it to go fast enough. Typing's not going to be good enough for this kind of a time control, right? So you got to have somebody who's like a buddy on Discord or somewhere. I mean, you can use anything you want, you know, Google Voice Chat, Skype, if anybody still has that, Zoom, etc. But you got to have somebody that you're comfortable doing that with. Then you get paired as a team against another team that's sort of like close to you in rating. So the first game, we're going to start it up right now because there are some people who pre-registered and are ready to go. There's a second game that'll be played in an hour. So if anyone wants to, like, you know, get organized and play in the second game, you guys can try and organize a team for that second game. The info goes into this exclam play place. And Alexa is going to be in the background, I guess, making sure the pairings are cool. So, yeah. So I'm going to officially say, you know, Cheesy Driver, you can challenge. Oh, Scott, you want me to say what colors the pairing should be? I would say just give the lower rated team, I would say just give the lower rated team white. So let's see, like the Cheesy Driver team has an average rating of 1380. They're playing a team with an average rating of 1150. So I would give the team that's rated 1150 white against the team that's rated 1380. That's what I do when there's, like, you know, when there isn't like a tournament structure or like prizes or anything to be like fair about. I just give like the low rated players white. And that just sort of like mildly evens out the match a little bit, I guess. All right. So, so the Michiko Jedi Knights team in round 1, they have white against the Far Eastern, the Sciences team. Seth and Renek have white against Chessa 0-0. And whoever is in the first column, like player 1 username, should be in live chess so they can send or receive a challenge. Like basically Cheesy Driver should be logged in for him and Pooh Bear. And then they should challenge Jus de Raisin with them having black, and the time control is 25 minutes plus 10 seconds unrated. I mean, if for some reason everybody wants it to be rated, I'm not telling you guys what to do. But let's say the default is unrated because it's sort of like a weird thing where, you know, you guys aren't playing following the normal single person rating system, so it doesn't really reflect any one person's rating anyway. It's kind of weird to make it rated, I think. So I'm going to start following you guys so that as games pop up, I can start seeing them. So I'm going to observe Cheesy Driver. No, wait. I'm going to follow Cheesy Driver so that whenever it happens, it pops up for me. I'm going to follow Seth Lichtenstein. I'm going to follow Far Eastern. Follow Baron 411. And maybe Michiko, or do I already have Far Eastern? So I've got Michiko. Yeah, I've got Michiko over here. I've got Far Eastern over here. Somewhere. I know the Far Eastern game hasn't started yet. Cool. Okay, so Giant Slalom, you've got black against Seth, and you're not sure if he's there yet. Let me see. If I follow Seth Lichtenstein, unable to follow him. Yeah, he's not logged in yet. So I'll just send him a message in Discord. Yeah. Hopefully it'll turn up in a second, Slalom. Let's see. This game, they said hello and then disconnected. This game disconnected. We've got one game that's successfully on the go, and Pancake Gremlin. As you may know, it is my goal and intention to always be trying out new things. No matter how cool like something is, I think we should keep trying different things, keep adding some variety. Alexa and Baron rematch again. They say hello again and move on to the next game. Can't seem to agree on their first move. Who's your partner, Paulson? A consultation match, Greaseball, is when you talk with your teammate while playing the game. That's consultation match. They used to do them now and then, there are games on the records of like really, really good players playing consultation matches, players like Lasker and so forth. Okay, we'll watch this game here that's actually going on. All right, so Paulson is Renek, waiting for Seth. We can give him like 5 minutes, and then, if necessary, try and arrange a different matchup since we don't want 3 people waiting around without a game for 1 person. Let's see, what other games should I check if they've started? So this has started. I see this has started. Baron and Gorkum against Alexa started. Far Eastern and Michiko. I have to try and refollow that Michiko game. That's what's happening. Follow Michiko 3. Oh no, she's under Jus de Raisin. Okay, but I don't see their game. Am I missing it somehow? No. Oh, there it is. Jus de Raisin, Alexa. Okay, so Far Eastern and Michiko are having trouble getting their first move off or something. Cool. Good to hear, Greaseball. Hey, Amanda. Welcome, welcome. Okay, Michiko and Far Eastern. On the move again. English opening, C4, E5. Everything seems ironed out. Excellent. Excellent. All right, folks. If you've never, ever tried this, this is like a really, really good, interesting exercise to do. How long am I going to be here, Thali? It depends whether there's demand for a third round, but like probably till midnight, probably 3 hours or so. If there's a lot of demand for a third round at like 11:30, I'll stay on later to do a third round. If people, are getting up in Asia and Europe and want in, we could do a third round by popular demand at 11:30. Otherwise, we'll do 2 rounds, look at some of the games, and go to bed. All right, so this game, which is the furthest along, They're into a very classic-looking queen's gambit. White's got a nice little space advantage. Black's solid so far. Ooh, Caitlin. Caitlin's playing in this game, I believe, Amanda. I think she's Jus de Raisin's partner in this first round. So, Pravid's already up. Excellent. Awake and even aware of being awake. I'm awake and aware. I say what I say because I care. That's a line from an unpublished song of mine. All right. Which game should the prediction be on? First, we have to pick which game to put the prediction on. Nice. Cool, cool, cool. All right. This match here. Ooh, it's rating wise, it's like this is a heavy game. Alexa's rated 2260. Baron's at 1750 with an 1850 rated partner. I don't know, Basil. I don't know. All right, so this Banco fully accepted all the way, but normally in this position here, when white plans e4, normally black plays bishop takes a6 there, so that on e4, black can take on f1 and mess up this king's castling plans. But here, black just kept doing their development thing. Didn't take, didn't stop e5 from white. The possible purpose of playing like this as black would be to play a very quick e6. That's sort of like the unique option that black has by not having played d6 or bishop a6, castling super fast. That would be the unique idea, would be to play e6 and try and trade this pawn with the white king still on the e-file. You're also awake in the US. That is a trick. All right. I think that's a fine idea to put Basil onto Renek's team in place of Seth. If that's amenable to everybody. So if Basil and Renek want to connect on Discord or something of that sort, you guys can play. That'll put like that would put Basil perhaps as the person to log in. I think Basil's numbers are 198025. If I'm wrong about that, it's going to be hard for you guys to pair the match. But Basil, you can always send the challenge yourself to chessa00. 25 minutes, 10 seconds, unrated, and you and Renek have white. Now, of course, like make sure you're connected online with Renek before you send the challenge. Yeah, just for the first round. 1980-25. Yep, I was right. Cool. Okay, so you'll want to be like, connected with Renek and actually talking ready before you get into that first move. Because otherwise it's easy to get, aborted on move one. Queen a5. So an independent variation from black here other than e6. Now, the most obvious response for white is bishop d2, covering that diagonal to stop the knight e4 threat. And after bishop d2, also the bishop is kind of like, by attacking the queen, it's reducing a lot of black's options to fight against the knight on c3. So I wonder what the follow-up for black is after bishop d2, what they have intended there. It's possible black wants to play bishop a6, and then on bishop takes, recapture with the queen. Maybe black has an idea like this. Takes here. And now if white wants to castle kingside, they have to pay the toll of queen e2 trading queens. Although, I mean, extra option for white is to, you know, not put the king way over there, since there's already, you know, some endgame element to it. Is that the kind of thing that Robert discusses? Wow, somebody immediately says 10,000 dojo gold on Team Alexa. A 100 bishop-sized bears or 1,000 pawn-sized ducks. I think the bears. I think the ducks. Bears are just too dangerous. I mean, even one bear would be tough to fight. I guess it's really small. But yeah, I mean, I think ducks are not particularly dangerous. He was focusing on his chess. Really. Actually, I should focus on the chess. I believe that chess streaming should be focused on chess. What am I doing here? All right, bishop d2. Black simply plays d6. And at this point, we can say that black's opening makes no sense. You know, I gave them the benefit of the doubt for a long time that maybe they had come up with some interesting idea together. But clearly, they're just a little bit confused about their opening. And this queen on a5 is not going to be helping black here particularly. Ugh. Okay. Ni hao, Legion. Took me a while to try and read that. This banco is jank. Yep. Juga banco buhao. Befriend the ducks. Absolutely. Get the ducks on your side. Just give them some broken up dry bread. Easy. Easy. Anyway, back to the chess. So this position here is not looking good for black. I wonder if white's even planning to put the pawn on a7 and say, hey, it's going to take you a minute to deal with this pawn, right? Jank means like bad, you know? Like not working well. Okay. Now our other game here, bishop g2, d5, trade, e4. Now this move here blocks in this bishop. So I'm not a fan of e4 in this position here. Right, I see how you slipped a little bit of chess into it. How dangerous would a bishop-sized bear be? It's quite an interesting question. A bear like this trying to get me. I think if I had shoes on, I'd be good. On Michiko's team is I Got Jedi Knights, yo. Yeah, poor bishop, indeed. If anyone still wants to play in round 2, of course, here's the spreadsheet where you can try and sign up and play. Check out our Queen's Gambit. Looking nicely for white so far, in my own opinion. time is very important in these situations, though, because, you know, sometimes in chess games, when someone's got 6 minutes and someone else has 2, it doesn't always like really determine things. Like they end up both just playing quickly together. But in consultation, if one side gets down to 1 minute when the other side still has 6 minutes, the side that's down to 1 minute, like the person who's got the mouse is going to kind of have to try and finish the game with minimal input, whereas the other team is still going to be playing as a pair for several more moves. And that's definitely a huge advantage, to play as a pair versus to play as a solo. A 26-1 long shot on Baron and Gorkum here. That's pretty extreme, but they do have, like, you know, a busted opening with black against a good player, so, and perhaps even 2 good players. If Alexa doesn't have a partner, if Alexa's playing alone, just to give them a match, then maybe we could believe in these moves just played. Yeah, okay, these moves were just played. So knight b5, queen retreated, a7 was the point, knight b7, and queen c2 to defend this pawn. If you defend the pawn with bishop d3, black has just a little combination, knight takes e4, because the bishop's doing 2 jobs. So queen c2. If Alexa doesn't have a partner, then Baron and Gorkum is a very good bet. Oh, right. Yeah, another thing is, I mean, knight takes e4 is obviously sufficient for black here, but another move to know about is c4. Right? Just kicking a bishop that's trying to defend e4. If it moves back here, of course, the knight would hang, but also when it moves back, sometimes knight c5 and the pawn gets overwhelmed. And if it takes, then of course black can take this pawn again that way. So bishop a6, a4. How to break through this construction, right? Sorry, I don't understand, Thali. I don't have an Alexa either. But how could I say to your Alexa something when you don't have an Alexa? Yeah, so how does black, like, get anything going against this knight and this pawn? I mean, again, here I would say like e6 is the best shot, but it wasn't played. Pawn guarded by a knight, guarded by a pawn, guarded by a rook. Good luck. Good morning, Stefano and Dordum. Hey, good idea. Opens up the bishop and tries to trade this off. Yeah, the problem with this, I guess, which gets the pawn back, is just that at the end, black's position's terrible, right? Because they've got no pressure on these files with the pawn and bishop defending each other. White's still up a pawn, and Black's just not doing anything. So this knight e8 move looks quite good. I'm impressed, Baron and Gorkum. On this move, I'm impressed. Yeah, good work. We're going to start seeing the power of consultation coming in here. We're going to start seeing some good moves. Yeah, the Benko did go wrong, Dornum, but it's not yet over for the Benko. Actually, hang on. We do have to ask ourselves if Black can even play knight c7, right? Because takes, and if the queen takes, bishop takes bishop. So here you'd have to do this. Then this move hits your queen. And the next move ends her. I mean, I don't know what Black's doing now, right? Then here, and you'll notice that Black is down a full rook. Like that takes did not work at all. Alexis just played bishop e2. Uh-oh. The plan is to play knight c7, but how to even play it? Uh-oh. So now the bishop's going to come to b5, and the knight on d7 will be hanging. Excuse me. Compared to previously when it was defended by the knight on f6. Interesting. Just had a thought that I may have other options for where I put the webcam other than on top of the computer. All right, well, we'll experiment another day. See how this is going. Knight d2, knight f6 to defend it, queen c2 attacking it, e5, knight e4, e4, knight f6, queen f6, and the queen defends d4. Man, oh man. Yeah, well played by Black. This e5 move solving the problems for Black. I think this move looks like it basically equalizes. Based on this tactic that pawn takes pawn, opened up the attack on e4 when the knight trades, then the queen defends d4. And Black has survived that whole opening that looked tough. So presumably this pawn being threatened twice is going to trade off on e3. White will take back like this, opening the second rook. Black queen will go into e5, a nice central square where nothing can attack her. And all Black still needs to do is play like bishop e6, connecting the rooks and defending f7 and d7. Those are the 2 points these rooks would like to get at. And White's going to have nothing. Honestly, like just a weakness that they don't even like is all White will have left for their early initiative. Very well defended by Black. Is there anything else White could have done against, like, right here? Knight f6, basically planning to play this. Queen c2 made sense. What else to do? I mean, one other thing you can do is you can play for knight c4. So you could play e5, Looking at knight c4. Best thing for black is going to be to break with e5 anyway to get this bishop out. There's no other move that's likely to be very useful here. So you go here, here. White takes on a weak pawn in this variation, but they get their knight to like a dark squared outpost. So they can try and outplay that way. But as black, if I just come here, 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 solves black's problems. Here. Bishop d5 before playing knight e8, so this pawn's not hanging. I doubt white can prove much in the face of black just being able to counter, because the knight runs out of places to hop away. So queen c2, what else? You could prepare d5 to answer e5, like queen b3, so that on e5 you play d5. Nothing special for white here either. Okay. Anyway, here we are in the game. The trade happens on e3. Oh, there's probably a fourth game I could be following now, right? Yeah, there's one more game. Here it is. Nice, Leafia. Got that out of the way. All right, so we've got like a dragon, a mainline looking dragon, right? Oh, black played accelerated. Bishop c4 castles, bishop b3, d6. But see, after d6, it transposes to the normal sort of Yugoslav dragon kind of position. The alternative here for black, I believe there are two. There's a5 and there's knight g4. I think those are the alternatives if you want to avoid the Yugoslav attack. Black spent 2 minutes on this move, so either they were unsure, yeah, perhaps they were unsure, not sort of like in their own opening theory here. So f3, bishop d7, queen d2, rook c8. I don't know if the bishop c4 lines are clearly less dangerous than the castle's queenside lines. I don't play the bishop c4 lines that much. I almost always play the castle's queenside lines. So I can't compare too well. I know the castle's queenside lines are very dangerous. I would guess that these lines here with bishop c4 are fairly dangerous for black as well. I mean, the opening just looks to me like it should be good for white. That's like my impression here. I mean, I try to save time on bishop c4, b3 in case of this common knight to c4 maneuver. But honestly, this move kind of prevents d5. The bishop's well placed. h4, h5 attacks are still strong. The general idea that, black's got a hook that white can use and that white's got a space advantage in the center, that those two factors would give white very, very good chances and upper hand in an opposite side castling pawn storm kind of opening seem very convincing to me. So I would still expect this position to be very good for white. I don't know. When I play what I usually play against Magnus. I mean, I don't have as like a super set repertoire, Dolly was talking. If I were to play Magnus, I would probably play something that I know the best, just because he's so good that it would be interesting to see what he thinks about my best openings. That would give me my best chance. But I don't really have any openings that I'm good at, so or I have very few openings that I'm particularly good at. The d5 line gives black some options to steer the game away from getting mated at least, but it is supposed to be good for white in most cases. I don't really know massive theory on anything, so. Yeah, it would be fun to play the fantasy variation of the Caro against Maggie. Be as good an option as any other. Okay, clicking back around, we've got fe3. Queen went here instead of e5. Rook f3 covering it and headed to g3. I think the queen would have been slightly better on e5 than g5. But black should still be pretty solid with just a bishop on e6. The highest rated player I've beat OTB. I think it might be Nakamura when he was about 2695 to 2700, like he was just crossing 2700. Is probably like the highest live rated player that I beat, but I'm not sure. I don't really think about it that much, you know. I don't keep track of that kind of stuff. As I said, like, the ego's really, really shriveled down. So I don't, like, you know, tabulate statistics of mine or even, like, remember or dwell on them particularly. According to some commentators, they say that according to engines. Yeah, I mean, no other way for you to say it, Sleepy Mario. If you don't count their, like, live ratings, because I don't know whether you mean, like, their rating at the time I played them or their rating eventually. I beat Fabi when he was a little boy, you know, and was not particularly good. And now he has a very high rating, but that's, in my opinion, pretty irrelevant. I don't think that's the question that Leafia, that you were asking, right? You were probably asking the question of who was the highest rated player that I beat when I played them, more like. Well, he can't, God Jordy, because it's possible that those people misreported what modern engines say to him. So he has to add the second degree of uncertainty. I don't know, race to GM. I remember almost... I remember a pretty high percentage of games that I've won or lost in my life. I remember a pretty high percentage. So I would say Fabi probably has a prodigious memory. I'm fairly confident saying that Fabi has a prodigious memory. So I would guess that the odds that he remembers it are something like 75%. Why did I call you Taliwastaken? I don't know, because sometimes I read out your whole name for fun. Is it that weird a thing to do? Okay, so I think black's pretty solid here. If we click over here again, white sort of got a position. Here, castles, knight c7. Sorry, I mean black sort of got a position. Interesting that the bishop didn't choose c6, right? And by interesting, I mean, you know, a bit surprising. Yeah, in any case, it seemed like bishop c3 was probably going to come. And then I feel like the bishop on c6, defending the pawn and taking control of the queening square is very logical. No, I didn't do it to bug you. I wasn't particularly thinking at the time. Pancake Gremlin asking about, you know, is remembering games just a byproduct of spending a lot of time looking at them? I think largely yes, Pancake Gremlin. But I think there are people who have like greater, you know, natural whatever memories or tendencies to remember things, right? There are probably people who tend to forget and people who tend to remember. You know, more or less. But then, of course, training plays a part, and then just how much time you spend thinking about it, how much you care about it, things you really care a lot about, you're more likely to remember. Yeah. I certainly don't want you to be mad, but you know me well enough to know that by now. All right, so of course, white wants to take this way, not to take the pawn away from supporting the buddy, but to use the neighboring file to help with the pawn. So that's why you would expect this, because if you leave that pawn on b2, it's sort of like a weak pawn, and then the white rooks can't get involved. Now the white rooks can go to b1. They can start, you know, either using the file or trading off black rooks on that file. They can use the outpost square of the pawn, and white can try and look to push their advantage. It's still a very nice position for white, for sure. For sure. When you've got a pawn you're trying to queen and your opponent blockades it, you very often have to use the square that the pawn attacks, the sort of like outposty kind of square, as like the key pivot point for maneuvering, to slowly try and then gain control over that square, or gain control of something else while your opponent's just busy stopping the pawn. Oh, that's a good point. The black queen is a little bit close to getting trapped, Alpha Canis. Yeah. check on our other game. Previously, there was a weak d2 pawn that people worried about. Michiko has managed to advance it early on in the game, actually. Here. Ah, c6 from Far Eastern is too timid a move here. This bishop's already blocked, so you don't need a pawn on c6 to block it. It was probably more played to keep the knight on c3 from using this square. But actually, black needs to develop the pieces more aggressively, I would say, controlling d4 and give white the option of knight d5. So black tries to stop that, but you can't get everything. Then white attacks e5, black defends e5, and white plays d4 with ease with a positional advantage for white, right? That immediately emerges there. So here I would think that pawn takes pawn might be slightly preferable for white because you're threatening to, win this piece basically like so. And so DE5, like in the Morphy Duke of Brunswick consultation match from 150 years ago, black's going to have to take on F3 first to then be able to capture on E5 with the bishop. So you can just get this position straight up. And then probably here and quick rook d1. Tuck the queen and set up f4 once you control this move. Should be a nice advantage for white. Nothing wrong with h3 probably. Still nice advantage for white. Bishop just drops back. Good. If you trade this bishop, you're really blowing your advantage for no reason. But if you just wanted to make black play h6 when they've got no light squared bishop, then actually this is a case where h6 hurts black. So it's fine to come to g5 and then just drop back because this move actually hurts black's position. Oh, such a nice position for white. Actually, black has knight c4, knight e3 equalizing, right? So the queen on d2 is unfortunate here. Maybe she needed to go to c2 in this case. Queen c2 might have been better. Or sometimes you just drop back this bishop first because it needs to anyway. And then depending what the opponent does, you choose what to do with your queen. Yeah. Why do chess players roll a piece in their hand? Something to do in a tournament. Some way to move your body a little bit without creating problems. Here's one way to do it. If you're curious, you can sort of spin it like this, right, within the grasp of the other hand. You can also turn it around like this. You can tap it against yourself. There's lots of great things you can do with the piece. Right. Right, would that queen d6 move win? I was wondering that too, actually, Dolly, when I was showing this move, and then I was just too lazy to calculate it. So let's try it. Here, this knight's hanging. Presumably, this piece is just going to trade. Now, if you move the knight, you're down a pawn. If you trade the queen, you're down a pawn. Huh. It does work. That's pretty simple. It's pretty simple, actually, Dolly, that queen takes d6 wins a pawn there. So that shows how strong in this position d takes e5 is, right? Just like in the Morphy game. Very, very strong move. Okay, so continuing on with our game. This happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. And actually, if I were here as white, I would even play bishop e2 to stop knight c4. It's just such a good move for black. But if the bishop came to e2, we wouldn't have this knight d5 plan. So now Michiko and team get to put a passed pawn on d5 probably. I would still think that after knight c4, black can hold that position against the passed pawn. No major worries or troubles. And another strength of bishop g2 is to always be threatening f4. Yeah. That would be nice. All right, so just for anybody watching who's interested in doing this, check it out. You could play in the next round of consultation matches. We'll play another game in about 15 to 20 minutes. So all you have to do is find a partner and then go put your information in that spreadsheet. This is a very, very, very interesting exercise to talk with somebody else through your whole game against a different team. To have someone who's like completely your teammate, you guys are talking together, sharing all your ideas and seeing what you come up with together. If you've never done it, it's like completely mind-bending in a good way. You can join Sleepy Mario. Anybody can. You just need a teammate who you can chat with during the game. It's made for everybody. And good morning, Sonic. I mean, if you've got a phone, yeah. Most people will probably use some kind of an internet app, right? Like Discord has voice chat built into it. Some people may use Zoom or something else. It's chess.com rapid ratings. It doesn't matter what your rating is or what your partner's rating is. We'll average them, you know. We've got teams where the two partners are very close in rating and teams where the two partners are very far away in rating. So it doesn't matter. It can be interesting to work with somebody similar to you or far away from you. All right. So white chose to take with the queen, not the pawn. Wow. Huh. You like the e4 pawn where it is. Well, you're not alone, Dolly. That was the choice of the Michiko team. I'm really surprised. I thought the whole point was to get this pawn forward. I do prefer the pawn majority, actually, in this position. I like this better now that I'm looking at it. I guess I just assumed something bad would happen on this file. I was already worried. Okay, so bishop e7, ideas queen moves, maybe knight d3 or something, but how devastating is knight d3 if it just makes the rook move? Then put in your blitz rating, Jordy, and that'll be fine. You know, this is not like a serious tournament, right? It's just a fun training experience. So there aren't sections. We don't really care what your rating is or anything. Right, white has no way to remove the blockader on d6, so the pawn would be stuck on d5 for a long time in the ed5 variation. Our TDs are playing, by the way. So depending on when the TDs games end, you know, we'll need a couple minutes maybe for them to get out of their games and pair the next game. But it should start in about 15 to 20 minutes. Submit games for analysis this week. To who or what, Wrath of Gods? Are you thinking of Jesse's show next week, or? Okay. The Chess A team went for h4 without king b1, h5, g4 without any further prep, tearing it open, h5, and then bishop h6. Takes. Here, this looks like the end. This is just mate. Knight g6, you can just take it, and they do. And that's the Fischer recipe for the Yugoslav attack. You go h4, h5, and then what is it? Sack, sack, mate. Doom, doom, doom. It was only one sack. Oh, yeah, I analyze some classical games every week. I think this Saturday I'm not analyzing games live, but maybe Kostya will. And Saturday night I might do another episode of the Postmortem. Let's see what the calendar says. Am I doing another episode of the Postmortem Saturday night? It's not marked yet. We shall see. Well, that was a KO, folks. That is the basic recipe. If any of you don't know how to play the Yugoslav attack as white, this is the basic recipe. You go h4. If black lets you, you play h5, even if it's not defended enough times, right? If black stops you, you play g4, just losing the g-pawn. And if they take, you play h5, losing the h-pawn. That was the whole game. That was the end of it. That's just a quick little textbook. How can you defend as black? Well, I don't know, Jordy Games. I don't play this suicidal variation myself. Never have. I guess maybe don't take on g4 at this point. I really have no idea. Dassy, you're welcome to try and find somebody to play the next game with you, yeah. Yeah, we've probably got another, I don't know, 15 minutes on this round. 10 to 15 minutes. Oh, one of the other games just finished meanwhile. Yeah, maybe queen a5 as a move here. That makes a lot of sense. Knight f5 could be coming for white soon. Yeah. Yeah, white still has moves. I mean, you know, it's complicated. It's not something where we can just like rattle off the answer in one or two moves, right? I mean, Express Train, I think the two people playing black this game, like, they didn't know a ton of theory in this opening. I think they were just trying something out together. And queen a5 here at the start. Yeah. It's possible for sure. King b1 perhaps. In this case, so that white can threaten knight d5. Um, yeah, who knows? Anyway, we're not going to like analyze a bunch of opening theory here. We're going to check out this other game. So you can see white bring the queen to d4 using the weak pawn as an outpost point where any trades will fix white's pawn structure. Going for queen g7 mate, g6 to cover it, as opposed to the more obvious f6, I guess. And white tries to just crack through it with the pieces. Rook d8. And black's able to defuse it already, bring out the pieces. And a diagonal mate. Oh, man. But it's very good that you've got it categorized in that way, Caitlin, that you're thinking of it as like a diagonal queen move, checkmate. Because like the more specific you are about what kind of moves you're missing, the more you'll be able to start like figuring out what you need to work on or become more alert to whatever you're not alert to. So Cheesy and Scott, you guys were solid. You guys were solid the whole time. You equalized that opening very, very nicely. We've got time pressure in our remaining games. So we've got... Whoa! Where did white's A-pawn go? Oh my god. For the 1 or 2 people who bet on the team of Baron 411, your chances are much better than 1 in 26 now. Holy moly. Maybe we should watch this to the end because of the whole, like, you know, betting drama. Holy moly. I guess white's still better. I just saw like that the position looked a lot better than what I had sort of thought it would look like earlier. What happened? Just tripling up on that A pawn. And white just took the B file and let it go. I guess that makes sense. This move was ill-fated, I think. Right here, black needs to like deal with fixing this knight, right? Because it's a tactical liability. This is a tactical liability. Oh, black was afraid of queen h6 setting up back rank mates. That's why black didn't play like queen c5 to cover this, or like, you know, king f8 to cover this and move this. Tricky. No rook a1 because of rook trades, and then the knight hangs. Anyway, let's stick with the live position. Let's see where we're at. Black played f6. Alexa's on 30 seconds to prove something. I expected something to come to b6 here from Alexa, trying to like just win something on the 7th rank immediately, but it's not clear, I guess. White plays something other than rook b6. There's a 10-second increment. Again, we don't know if Alexa's working with or without a teammate. We know that Baron is definitely playing a consultation game with Gorkum on the team. Yeah, 25 minutes to consult is not a lot of time to consult. But it's something. It's something, and you know, it's an interesting experience. And if we made this like a 2-hour thing, I think it would be less accessible because, you know, people's time wouldn't work out to play it. So I think 25 minutes, it's a good taste of what it could be. And someday we might run some longer ones if there's like tremendous interest. So far, I would say there's only a smattering of interest. So I'm not particularly thinking that we're going to run this kind of thing very often, but it's a lot of it's very, very interesting experience for those who do it. So I don't know about one on the spot there, Express Train. Rook b6, trying to go after that. Rook c8 and rook a7 are kind of the options, right? Rook a7, I guess. Rook b8 now. Well, I don't see why this would be particularly winning on the spot. Let's see where they're at. Rook b4, rook a1 was played, leaving the c-pawn hanging. White's down to 10 seconds. Caitlin did get your rooks out nicely. Yep. All right, with 5.1 seconds left, White snacks the pawn. And what is Black's plan? They've got to justify it all now. Whoo, getting tied up on the c-file. That doesn't look good enough to me. First blush, looks like Alexa's got them tied up now. Immense pressure is definitely different than wins on the spot. Knight takes d5 coming, says Wrath of God. Oh, that was a moment. Knight takes d5 would have saved the game. Whew. And now, I mean, you know, one rook defending c8 is not enough. This is looking fairly terminal, but you know, you can run the king towards d8 and just see what comes up. See whether or not White wins. g3, bishop h3 looks like it should do it. Black blitzes king f7. Now bishop h3. That's the end. Thank you for playing. Yeah, nothing to do about this bishop on h3. That is absolutely the end. Fini la commedia. This is what I think of when I think of winning on the spot express train, is a move like bishop h3. And no way to avoid the f-pawn moving here. If Black could play king f6 and g5, they could keep it going a little bit longer. But White's just going to go take that rook now. Oh, Min, thank you for the raid. I hope you're there, Min, because I have something I've been wanting to do. I've been wanting to invite you to an event of ours, a game show, a chess game show. So, I mean, first of all, thank you for the raid. We appreciate it very much. Raiders, welcome to a very unusual show. We are doing consultation matches, like the Count Isidore, Duke of Brunswick versus Morphy game. Consultation matches. Users from our channel are talking to each other live online while playing against other pairs of players. Open to everybody. But Min, if you're out there, just went straight to bed. Okay, very tired. That's too bad. We do want to invite Min to our game show, The Gauntlet. Anybody know how best to do that? If there were a way to listen into the consultations, it'd be awesome. I mean, I could bring in one pair for us to listen to one pair, for sure. But we can't have a bunch of different pairs all at once, depending on what Dripman's suggesting we do. I mean, I could definitely create a Zoom and have, like, actually different teams in different rooms within my huge Zoom. And then I, as the host of the Zoom call, could go from room to room and, like, give the viewers of the channel chances to listen in on different teams. That was the last game from the first round. Right around the same time, the Michiko Far Eastern game ended also in a time scramble. This position was really complicated, but black got tripled pieces into the second rank, which won it. I could totally like do that level of production for the show, no problem. But is that what Drittman's like wanting to do? It'd be cool to have one we can hop in on. You mean you want me to just host? Do you want me to just host the whole thing? I can definitely do that easily. Or I mean, without too much difficulty. I just hadn't thought that there was so much value added to doing it. So, all right, I guess it's time for us to pair up the second game now. I guess it's time to pair up for round 2 now. So, yeah. Here's the link, folks. Anybody who intended to play, if you didn't put your name in the spreadsheet, you got like 10 seconds to go do it. Our TVs are going to start pairing it up for game 2. And when I say pairing it, I mean just giving you someone to play. It's not a tournament. There's no prizes, no funny business. But if you meant to play and you didn't put your team name in there, best to hurry because we're going to want to get these games started. All right. Catch you next time, Amanda. I hope your classical game was fun and exciting and interesting. And maybe next time you'll be able to participate in one of these consultations. All right, Alexa's filling out Alexa's team, which we didn't know before. Now we're going to find out if Alexa's got a partner. Sciences was not sure about that game. Yeah, I wasn't sure either. Let's go back to where we sort of knew better. So some position like this. White's bishop pair is cool. This move, however, gives black a dark square. So that's probably a move that sort of like drops white's advantage. I would guess in a position like this, white has like a huge advantage actually at this point. I think the science is, this unopposed light squared bishop. And for white, I think you want to put this pawn on e5 more than that pawn on f5. Right? Because you put the pawn on e5, your f4, e5 pawns are sort of taking control of dark squares, kicking away these pieces. But these pieces can't go live on light squares because your bishop can always hunt them down. So I would put the bishop on c4 to be pressuring f7. Probably put the pawn on e5. Maybe play rook d1 at some point. And I would think white has an advantage. After the black knight gets e5, and we go to straight opposite colored bishops, now white's dark squares and king are even weaker than black's light squares and king. So now I would expect that the advantage flips from white to black off of this bishop takes e5 trade. Bishop comes to the correct square. Black defends it. May or may not have been necessary. If you're going to defend it, I would defend it with this rook sciences, so your other rook can still make threats down to d4, d3, or d2, depending what happens. So backed up. King here came in. Took the pawn, sacking f7. That seems like a pretty good choice. But you also have an amazing move. You had this move. Of course, I know you guys aren't GMs. But just, it's an awesome, exciting move anyway. Far Eastern and the sciences. Rook to d3 here. You guys considered it. Nice. Do you have 5 minutes to make tea, Falk? 3 minutes to make tea? Oh man, Alexa's got Aaron on his team. That's an impressive team. Tough team to play against. Yeah, pretty OP. This rook d3 move would have worked out, you guys. I don't know how much you calculated, but it's a pretty sick move. The idea is to get into g3 and checkmate white's king, right? And there's like one way that could go is white captures the offending rook with the bishop and then check, followed by checkmate with the queen, right? The other way it could go is white trades off the queen to avoid checkmate, right? But then after queen g3 check, king here, check, here you collect the bishop. And now you've got queen and bishop against 2 rooks, which is a winning material advantage. Plus the king's open. Yeah. So that move there is just, you know, a knockout. You went for queen b2, and after trades here, white should now have traded queens. Right? If white trades queens and then plays like bishop d5 so the second rook can't get in, then I think the game's probably about equal in the endgame. That's just a rough guess, you know. Someone might be better by a pawn or something, but certainly neither player is going to get checkmated. Right? So this is the defense that Michiko and Jedi Knights should have used at this point. Would have been to say like, okay, black's on our second rank, we should trade queens. In the game, they kept their queen on the board, and then you were able to triple. And there, of course, you're winning when you triple. Yeah. Okay. Players have had enough time to put their information into the spreadsheet. So now, TDs, you may officially begin pairing people for round 2. And maybe I'll hide. Well, we definitely don't want to pair people who didn't want to play the second round, so I'll just mark them clear. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams for game 2. That's perfect. That'll be 3 matchups. You tried to play reasonable moves. Well, yeah. And I guess you largely did play reasonable moves, right? You guys gonna stream to the boom room? Go for it. Awesome. You're deferring a bit to sciences on the calculation. Fair enough. It's interesting to play with a teammate, though, right? Have you ever done that before, Far Eastern? Was that a new, nice little experience? Thanks, Express Train. Thank you. Thank you. Now, I will say, Express Train, I am going to keep up doing different kinds of things and offering varieties of events, right? But I don't think we're going to run a lot of these consultation matches. You know, when we run other tournaments, we get 60 to 150 participants in our other tournaments. And for this, we're getting like, 15 people. Oh, sorry, no, it's times 2. If we've got like 12 or 13 teams, it's like 25 people. So I think it's not a super popular cup of tea at the moment. And those who've done it have really liked it, so I've tried to talk it up in response to that and be like, hey, folks, this is a special thing that will really change the way you see chess, even if you just do it once. But I mean, I'm not going to like keep begging people to do an event that they're not flocking to at some point, right? Is there any way to deal with cheating accusations for your underrated play? I mean, if you play enough games, your rating should catch up with your level. That's what ratings do pretty quickly. That should help. And How to deal with cheating accusations? Generally, I would say ignore them. Unfortunately, just as there's little just as there's little you can do about people cheating against you, there's also little you can do about people making cheating accusations against you. The most you can do is try and block it out and not let it poison your own experience, right? Yeah, some people try to choose every move by calculation. That's not always practical, right? There's other thought processes possible for some moves. For Michiko, it was the worst. Okay. So I said some people really liked it, but not everybody. When you have to talk, the time turns out to be not that much, that's for sure. Alrighty, let's see. What do we have as far as some pairings? We've got the pairings up. So, the team of Cheesy Driver and SM Pooh Bear, you guys now get white against the team of Falk and Michiko. And, you know, whenever the boom room is set up with tea and everything, you guys can start that game up. Baron and Gorkum, you guys have white against Dritman and Daster. And then we've got Leafia plus Scotch Prep going up against the Alexa Aaron team. Nice. All right, Sciences. Glad you enjoyed. We can try a different time schedule some other day. There's never any real answer to the time zones for us here on the 24-hour time zone dojo. Got Baron 411 against Dripman. People are having like heavy discussions about the first moves they want to play in these games. Yeah, you guys are gonna have to like come up with your opening in advance or very quickly. Otherwise, chess.com is just gonna abort you and abort you and abort you. Oh yeah, I should say the Leafia is probably Leafia official on chess.com is probably the account. So that's where you should be getting a challenge from, Alexa, actually. Leafia. How bad is the London for a beginner player? Not especially bad, Express Train. I mean, I think a lot of the ways that people learn the London are bad. Whatever their source material is seems to be pretty bad. Like, whoever's out there teaching people to play the London system is doing a darn bad job of whatever videos are out there or books are out there on the London system, because the way people end up playing it is terrible. But my own theory on beginning players Express Train is that they should play a variety of openings. So there's nothing wrong with playing the London system for 2 months, and then you got to move on and play another opening, etc. I don't think the London system is necessarily better or worse for a beginner player than the King's Gambit, the Ruy Lopez, or the Sicilian Defense. You know, just an opening. All right, so I don't yet see the Leafia game. Ah, can the Caro win with a big old raid? Nice. Oops, sorry, hang on. Shout out, can the Caro win? There we go. Thank you very much for the raid. Wow. Awesome. I thought you just started streaming. That's quite a crowd. That's quite a crowd to have. If it's true that you've just started streaming. In recent days, let me check out your channel. Let me check out your channel myself here real quick. Can the Kara win? Yeah, less than 1,000 followers. You've just got it started here.
Not very flexible. Not great at saving. You deserve better. Xfinity Mobile. Now they have unlimited for just 30.
Wow. So you've got some people watching you. You've got some people watching you. Oh, you got a nice raid to help you get started. Cool, cool, cool. So tell us what you're doing on your stream. This is your chance to advertise yourself to our people. We're happy to have that, to get to know what other people are doing out there in the streaming world. Like what kind of stuff would our people expect to find if they follow your stream? What are your ideas for it? You're probably fresh and excited. Is Falk versus Cheesy some kind of Nimzo? No, because Black hasn't played Bishop B4. It's some kind of Queen's Gambit declined. So you play games against your viewers and then give them feedback on the games that they play with you afterwards? Cool. Our focus on this channel is like a good community, a growth mindset, and then like variety. We try to offer, you know, some like really different stuff. So like lots of educational stuff, but we also occasionally try to be entertaining, you know, like do a game show and stuff like that. Peace, love, positivity, and high quality chess. Nice. It's great. You've already got testimonials, right? You've already got testimonials coming in for you. Whoa. Good Lord. Everybody's getting welcome to the dojo by Tribeca Castle. What do you mean that's just Heady 5? It's great to have a testimonial. You've just got going already. You've got 50 people coming with you on a raid and somebody providing positive testimonials about you. That's fantastic. And Tribeca, many thanks. Many thanks for your gracious gifts, welcoming people in. Hopefully they'll be happy to be subs here. Cardinal 8911 also saying that Can the Kara win is pretty cool. Multiple testimonials already. That's fantastic. I'm going to look at this chess position for a second, folks. So, White's playing Queen's Gambit. Black's c6, d5, looks to sometimes take and play b5. But White plays bishop d2, which is often associated with queen c2 and castling queenside quickly. Jeez, Tribeca, what on earth is... I've never seen this like huge red number. Is that you throwing tons of money at us? Because if it is, I have to appreciate you so much for that. Because I've never even seen that. I don't understand if that can be real. It looks like it's real. Our and our stream is still posting alerts from before. Wow. Can the Kara win if you brought Tribeca Castle with you on the raid? Thanks to you too. Madness. it's making me hard for, but I think the point of our stream is for me to talk about chess, not to just thank people profusely. So I'm full of gratitude. I really appreciate being appreciated. I'm going to try and keep giving you guys what this stream is supposed to be about. So bishop d7 is a very unusual move from Falk and Michiko here, because normally black would put the knight on d7 because the knight is better at like fighting for these early central squares. So bishop d7 is unusual. White plays very calmly, and then black fights in the center quickly with c5, despite playing this bishop d7 move. It's a very, very odd start to the opening for black, and Cheesy Driver and Scotty put the rook on the c file, which is looking to put some pressure on c5 and take away some of black's options here. Great stream. That's the new text to voice. Nice. Lowest level of hell also. You must be doing something pretty good, Carlwyn. So that means that we will be raiding you in the future. Because what I'm always looking for is to raid channels that, you know, our viewers are going to enjoy. I'm not like trading raids for like business or this or that, you know, like I'm just like looking what's up and saying like, does this sound like something that's like good quality content for our viewers, something that they're also going to like. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what those testimonials tell me. So whether or not those convinced anybody here to follow you, we'll be checking you out in the future, and then they'll get a chance as well. Okay, so my instinct would be that this bishop d7, c5, with having also played c6 and also being black, this opening shouldn't be good for black, right? To play bishop d7, c6, and c5 as black in the queen's gambit. You'd expect that black's going to be under big pressure here from white's rook and end up with like a worse position. And actually, if we look at it, white's got knight c3 and rook c1 for free in a position with huge central tension. So then knight c6 gets played. White goes takes, 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 knight d5, unleashing the hidden attack and winning a pawn. That's kind of, to me, logical, right? That's logical for what we can expect out of that sort of lead that white had in pressure, and then black tries to explode the center. So I think black's getting correctly punished for their sin. For those of you who may have seen the one time that we played the game called Sin on our stream, that's what's happening here. White called Sin and punished correctly, winning a pawn. Yeah, we'll be happy to have you on the gauntlet. Do you want to email me so we can try and like schedule you for an episode? My email is just prus@gmail. Or you can ping me on Discord. But hit me up somewhere offline so we can, I mean online but off stream, so we can schedule an episode for you. I'm happy to invite you on there. Okay, yeah, so white seems to be up a pawn at this point, basically for free. I still don't have the Alexa game. Why not? There it is. Okay, so there's the third game. Oh man. Alexa decided to try and show how to play the black side of this dragon, in which we saw someone get so brutally ruined last round by h4, g4, h5. I mean, I invented it, Thierry. I invented it. I didn't put a patent on it. Anyone's allowed to do whatever they want with any of my content and ideas, pretty much. I mean, I would say taking, like, copying my videos and then publishing them on your own YouTube site and then monetizing them, I'm not cool with. But, I mean, if somebody wants to try and, like, play the gauntlet on their own channel or, you know, Sin or whatever, fine with me. my ideas are pretty much out there in the open. But I don't like when somebody copies like my actual videos or articles and like publishes them as their own and charges people money for it. That like passes a grenze, a line that I'm not comfortable with. Or that I'm not, I mean, yeah. I guess just because I like don't like greed, and it seems like they're being kind of like greedy to like try and make money off of something that's not even their own work. All right, so we got Baron versus Dripman here. Bishop c5, Rui Lopez. I guess Neo Archangel, an opening of the week recently on the dojo. Coming through, right? c3, d6, here, yeah. Rookie 1, castles, h3. Cool. We had a game like this on the postmortem this week also. That Sombrero, I think, played as black and lost, and it was just a fascinating game that I couldn't figure out for him. The idea, Wrath of Gods, is that by playing Bishop c4 early in this opening, you prevent black from playing d5 by controlling d5. So they're just trying to avoid that. The bishop can get traded, and it may seem like a waste of time to spend 2 moves moving the bishop, but you prevent the opponent from playing d5 long enough to get your attack started. And black has to, waste a similar amount of time trading the bishop as you spend putting it on b3, I think. Also, you'll notice that black played the accelerated dragon move order in this game as well, which means you can't just go f3, queen d2, because d5 in one move without d6 will absolutely ruin white's opening, right? So white played bishop c4, bishop b3, and now black plays d6. Now white could say, oh, I could have castled queenside without bishop c4, but because black played the accelerated dragon move order, there was no option for white there other than this. Now white plays f3, stopping knight g4, and we transpose to a Yugoslav. g4, knight e5. I think in these lines with the bishop on b3, you may want to save your time on g4 and just play h4, h5. The bishop here temporarily gives you like better abilities to break through h4, h5 because g6 is weaker. So I think in these lines, it's perhaps preferable to not spend a move on g4 and just play h4 here. I'm sure theory knows the answer, and like anything I'm saying, someone else could be like, no, I looked it up in a database, so it's almost pointless to discuss. But from my perspective of understanding chess and not knowing theory, it makes sense here to perhaps play h4, foregoing g4. Just leave that move out. White played g4. Which makes h5 by white 1 move slower, right? 2 more moves to get there. And Cheesy's asking me for advice on what to do in like an OTB tournament, but Cheesy should be like playing this game, so I can't really be talking to Cheesy right now. Cheesy should have the stream muted and not hear any advice I give. Because I was actually talking about Cheesy's game like moments ago and giving my evaluation and everything, so... Muting now. Yeah, so you listened to my whole like discussion of your game. You've already got Scotty to talk to about the game. You don't need an IM in your corner too. Okay. So the Dripman team having a good think here. Dripman is joined by Daster, a dastardly Swede. So after knight takes d5, black played knight e4 to try and get the bishop pair potentially out of this pawn that's lost. Pieces come out. Wow. Queen hits this. This piece is undefended, right? But like takes. Here is what black's counting on to hold the game together. Samuel Baltz. Yeah, that's good advice. My advice for your OTB tournament is not to bring me to the game with you and then listen to what I think about your game during your OTB tournament. Takes. Bishop c3, hitting these pieces, says Wrath of Gods, right? Which is awkward for black. And after this move, queen f3. I suppose that at least, saves the piece long enough to get castled. But as Wrath of Gods says, this position looks awful. The bishop is looking very good, and the extra pawn is there. Okay, so live position, white's just traded. We would have to expect a recapture. Advice on how to not go broke while playing in one OTB tournament. Why would one OTB tournament break your bank, Paulson? Because of missing work or because of the entry fee? I don't have any Bitcoins, and I don't recommend buying any Bitcoins. Well, so far all the moves that we were looking at, including the bishop c3, that Wrath of Gods warned us about. So Cheesy and Scott, relentless with the good moves. Relentless. And over here, we had g4, knight e5. h4 was met by h5 anyway. So I guess this could have turned out exactly the same, right? I made this whole point like, oh, h4, h5, g4. I mean, that would have been exactly the same position. So maybe it didn't matter. Depends on how it's played. Knight to h5. Now I expect moves from white like rook to g1 and, bishop h6, knight f5 kind of moves coming up. Cherry Magnolia, congratulations. You do not yet need to learn an opening, but I would suggest that if you've been playing e4 for a few months, that you change it up and play 1d4 for a couple months while developing however you feel like. Keep going with that. That sounds good to me. Yeah. So how do you not go broke at chess tournaments? Because after you play the tournament, you drink a lot. No, but you're saying that the tournament's expensive as hell, huh? Is it a tournament that you have to like travel to and pay for a hotel and stuff? That's fine if you get punished playing it. You can still just keep playing it. That's all right. It's just a learning experience, You may naturally like fit e4 better and have a better first experience with it, but it's still worthwhile to take some lumps in 1d4 as well. Okay, so you're paying stuff like airplane tickets and hotels and stuff. I mean, my advice, Paulson, is basically to rarely play tournaments where you have to travel until you're a master. Until you're a master, you can play small local tournaments, and there's no need to travel to play like, better players from somewhere else. It depends where you live, whether there are any like tournaments available for you. And like, I mean, there's so many factors when we talk about, your personal finances and your tournament choices. But like, I'll just say for my own, you have to travel for any tournaments. Okay. Yeah. I mean, in my own experience, for example, like I got to 2200 before I traveled. Like I only played tournaments that were within like, 30, 45 minutes of me. And they were like little like tournaments, like, quads, rated quads. I'd play against other 1200s, and the entry fee was $5 for each of the 4 players, and the winner got $10. That's like where I practice chess. A little stuff like that. If you live in the middle of nowhere, that's like really tough. To find like a tournament. Yeah. Cause like, the point of a tournament, and it's not like you would never want to play one big tournament for fun, but like a tournament does not need to be about like, 3,000 people are there and $10,000 prizes and stuff like that, Yeah, Dallas is another place where it's like easy to play some cheap tournaments without traveling. So how to play in tournaments without going broke? Shoot, man, I don't I don't know given the constellation of factors you've told me. Here's an idea though. Here's an idea, Paulson. I mean, how in the middle of nowhere do you live? How in the middle of nowhere do you live? Like, now that there's this like huge excitement chess boom from the Queen's Gambit and the lockdowns, the pandemic, everybody at home, this massive chess boom, and people want to go out and try playing chess. What if you tried organizing your own tournament and just see if anybody shows up? Like, I have no idea where you live, but like potentially if you live somewhere pretty sparse, but like run like a small tournament, like at your local library, if your town has a library. I don't know how like middle of nowhere we're talking. But even if you've got a town of 10,000 people with like a tiny library or something like that, all you need is for like 10 people to show up to have like a great tournament. And even like 4 to 6 people, you could practice some chess. So, and you could do a thing with like, whatever, like $2 to $5 entry fees, like what I'm saying, like just basically like nothing. Like if you can find like a venue, I mean, it's going to be like summer now, so you can probably like have the tournament outdoors. You could do it in a park. I would try something like that. Like if you're saying like multiple times you're spending hundreds of dollars and you're not like necessarily in search of opponents rated 2,500, if you're willing to just play with, salt of the earth, 1,200, 800, 1,600 players, create some kind of local group thing. Yeah, find like some people near you. There's a good chance you can find them, and mix like Scholastic with adult if you need to, right? If you're somewhere where it's really sparse, there's no reason that adults and kids can't play in the same tournament. And there's sometimes been like 50% or 100% more Scholastic members than adult members in the U.S. Chess Federation. So you might be able to do that. Worth a shot. And here's another thing, Paulson. if it turns out that there's like 20 people in your area who are interested in chess, but none of them are good enough to play like really interesting games with you, right? And this gets into what Giant Slalom is saying. Like, if you do find like 20 people in your area who want to play chess tournaments, but you're just like too much better than all of them, you can set up some kind of thing that basically like sponsors your tournaments by teaching them, right? So like you could do some like group classes or like play like, you know, a tournament with them where they each pay a $5 entry fee. You win the tournament, you get $100, right? You teach a couple classes on a weekend. You charge people $5 each to show up to your class, right? Earn $50 to $100 for like a couple group classes, and then use that money to go play a tournament on the fourth weekend where you travel somewhere. And I mean, I'm not saying this in a sense of like exploitation or whatever, right? I mean, like in my suggestion to you, you're charging people $5 for a perfectly valuable service, right? And then you're just taking that money and using it to like further and improve your own chess from it. So that's like a perfectly reasonable system. Like, you know, so either you find competition that's worthy near you, or if you don't, you know, teach or play weaker players, you know, 1 or 2 weekends a month, and then use the proceeds from that to fund, you know, you going out and finding good competition on one other weekend. The Wrath of Gods is doing that. So yeah, it's a real idea. I mean, as like I told people, this came up earlier today because someone came into chat and was saying like that there was some IM who was going to spend $100,000 trying to become a GM. And like, you know, thinking back on my chess life and chess career, I never lost money playing chess, Paulson. And I don't mean when I was like an IM or when I was a master. Like when I was like, I probably lost like a few dollars like the first year I played when I was 1200. And that was it. But I probably only spent like, you know, like $5 entry fees on like 10 tournaments. You know, that was probably like my biggest loss. And then I had a USCF membership, Scholastic, you know, $18 at the time or whatever. You know, I may have lost close to $100 like my first year. And then since then, you know, I started to like occasionally win the quad, you know, and get $10 back instead of losing 5. And, you know, I just never like, you know, went outside of my means, you know. I just won a few dollars here, played cheap events. I'm in an dense area, which makes it much more possible to do that. But the point is, I never had to be like, I don't think, I think there are models to never be like blowing huge amounts of money on chess. Right, you've actually even like made money winning like class B sections, right? And you know, when I was in the C section and the B section, like I was winning, you know, prizes. You know, they were like $100 or $200 off of like, you know, $20 entry fees. But so now you're in the A group, so yeah, you're gonna take some licks for a little bit. That's fine. So why would you not get great games in the under 1900 section, Wrath of Gods? If you're 1800, you'll be playing other people, what, between 1700 and 1900? Should be fine games. Or if you win them all, you win money. And if you've won too much money recently, then you can always use that money to play up. Sure. You're welcome, Paulson. Black's preparing to triple against c2 and then what? Maybe play like e5 at some moment to break through. And if white plays... So rook here, at some point you'll be threatening e5 to break through c2. If white plays c3 to stop that, then you've got a target for b5, b4. So black's got some play coming here. Why did the knight go to e2 instead of like d5 or something? Was e6 just going to come and evict it? Well, you have to play like 5 players who are like 500 to 1,000 points below you. That's a lot. And Mario, yeah, I mean, if you live on like a small Pacific island and you can't find any chess players there, then you may not be able to play OTB chess. That's one of the costs of being somewhere like small, right? Like one of the benefits is that you're not overrun with annoying, loud, polluting people. And one of the costs is that if you've got some interest, it's hard to find local people who are interested in the same thing as you. Whereas if you're in some like horrible place like New York City with like 10 million people and you know, it's just like noisy, uncomfortable, and gross all the time. But whatever you're interested in, you can find other people who are interested in it too. It's like just a natural trade-off. There's not always an answer to every single problem in our lives. You thought b5, b4 already would be better, Express Train. But yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing here, Express Train. If you just play b5, b4 here as black, you do nothing, right? Like white just ignores you and you don't attack anything. You need to first generate a threat that generates a hook, and then b5, b4 actually makes sense, right? Yeah, had white not played knight e2, and I'm not sure why white played knight e2. If had white not played knight e2, black may have progressed the game in a different direction, although I think there's like a pretty good chance black would have played something like, you know, queen c7, rook c8 anyway, just looking for an exchange stack, or queen a5, rook c8, looking for an exchange stack. I think it's pretty likely that black would have still played to just pressure with their pieces. Because b5, b4 takes a bit of time, you know, and then white can just dodge out with knight d5. So knight c2, queen c7, bishop h6, rook c8, right? Threatening this e5 move. Now, white's going to probably want to trade here, king takes, and then do something about e5. What could white do about e5? Ignore it is one option. White could just play some aggressive move on the king side. Okay, king takes. So like here, you know, white could play a move like queen g5. White could play a move. White can't play knight f5 check because bishop takes and rook c2 wins. So that move's been taken away from white. So there's like queen g5 going after this, but leaving c2 hanging, right? As well as the knight. And here the idea is to just move the king aside. Rook takes. If knight takes, queen check. But you have to, kind of. And here you can do this. It's messy. There usually aren't huge cash prizes in the under 800 sections. If there are under 800 sections, lowest level of hell. Normally, like the prize money only really starts under like 1200. Well, at least, sorry. My info is like 6 years out of date because I had kids and stopped playing in tournaments. In the old days, you pretty much had to be winning like the under 1200 section to be starting to win money. Right, even after trading one rook, there was still the other rook to c1. Yep. Good call, Mario. I had assessed that idea here, that if we took here, there was rook e1 and takes. But then somehow I thought like, oh, I'll just like trade once and then I'll do it. But there's just rook c1 winning for black. So it's not messy at all. Okay, so white's move here. Queen g5, rook c2 looks bad. c3, b5 comes pretty fast. But I mean, it's not absolutely the end. c3 is pretty plausible. And the answer will be b5. It's been so long since I've played OTB, I'd probably even enjoy playing some games with 1200s in tournaments, yeah. I really enjoyed the 2 games I played this year online of classical chess. Even though I wasn't at a tournament site, I really have a strong hankering to go play. But we'll see what comes. My problem now is sort of like, time. Like, I don't have a lot of time away from my from my family. I don't want a lot of time away, but it's also hard to arrange it. That's pretty good, Express Train. Oh, somebody asked earlier how good you could be just like studying at home, right? Without playing in tournaments, without like, I don't know what the other parameters or limits were. I don't remember the exact question because chat was streaming and I was also looking at the moves here. C3 comes in as we expect, and so we'd probably expect B5, B4. But the answer in general to that question is very good, right? There are people who haven't played in tournaments who are like 2000 level now. And it used to be that like the best players who hadn't played in tournaments were like 1200. Like when somebody showed up for their first tournament, like the bad ones would be like 200, average would be like 600 to 800, and like the really good ones would be 1200. And now you've got people who are like 2000 and haven't been in a tournament before. So it's a big change. Black's thinking before throwing the pawn. You're 1300 Express Train. You're 1300 online or 1300 in like a published rating? 20 titled players sounds like a lot. 1300 FIDE. And online you must be like well over 2000, right? $2,200 online. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, well, your FIDE is definitely going to be tremendously underrated. Do you play blitz chess online or rapid chess or like classical? What kind of time controls do you practice in? Because like OTB, like potentially the other big difference OTB is a lot of people who play online play like 3 minute chess or 5 minute chess, and then you get to like OTB and it's like 2 hour chess, and it's quite different, quite different. That's right. FIDE used to not publish ratings for anyone under 2200. I remember when I was trying to get my first FIDE rating, it was like you had, and I waited like, you also had to wait like 6 months to find out if you'd gotten a FIDE rating, right? And so I would like go to these tournaments. You had to play at least 4 or 5 games in a single tournament with an average performance rating over 2200 for those games to even count. And then you had to like have those games like add up to more than like 10 over some number of tournaments within a 6 month period. And you never knew like for sure like which players were or weren't FIDE rated and whether or not your like result was going to get you a rating. And you would like wait like 6 months to find out and then be like, oh, I'm not FIDE rated. And then you'd wait another 6 months and then like see if you got a FIDE rating. It was like quite a waiting process with no information. People nowadays couldn't handle that. Waiting 6 months to then find out like, no, you don't have it yet. No explanation, no information on what you should or shouldn't do differently to try and get it in the future. You don't know if you were 1 game short or 6 games short. Just nothing. Nowadays, people would lose their stuff waiting 6 months to find out something. You've been working really hard this year. Nice. Yeah, back then people didn't care about that. I mean, like I kind of wanted to have a FIDE rating or whatever, but it's not like I was like losing my mind, you know. Nowadays, people after like 5 minutes of waiting for something will start to to twitch nervously. Well, Alexa and Aaron are thinking a long time about pushing the B pawn. What other moves do you think they've got coming? That sounds like a real beatdown express train. So, I mean, B5, B4 does give white up to 2 moves to do something. That's scary. That is scary, I'll say. And white's biggest ideas are probably like knight f5, f4, f5, rook g5. I think knight f5 is just a faster way to play f4, f5 for the most part. Like you could spend 2 moves getting your pawn to f5, or you could play knight f5 check. They're not going to be able to tolerate your knight on f5 with queen h6 coming in, so they'll take it with the bishop, and then you get a pawn to f5 basically in 1 move. So, thinking of this, trade it, and go. This should be good for black. This should be good for black if they get this. So another idea would be queen a5, and then, oh yeah, it hits a2. And then like maybe you trying to just like go after the structure just with your pieces. Yeah, that could be an idea. King b1 might hold. Oh, after rook c3 check, you mean? Not insane, but odds are that black's, well into the game at this point, right? the rook goes somewhere attacking the knight, perhaps. Like this. Now knight f5, bishop takes, and the pawn can't take. So we've won a pawn. Now white has to worry about the back rank, like big time. We're challenging the knight. It can't go here. We're planning h5 here. And then takes or something, and like check, and this king's still here. Yeah, there might still be some variations there available for white. So b5, in this position, Scotch Prep and team just played king b1. Express Train says instead of this, we could take on d4 right away. And again, h5 is coming. Bizarrely, it still seems like black's in danger here, even with the extra piece and the centralized queen. Yeah, I can go back. There's a lot of moves possible on every one of these moves. It's just, I'm just giving like a sample. If I give like hundreds of variations, it's overwhelming to the majority of our viewers. So rook d4, h5, d5 was just one idea, and Wrath of God says that h takes g is correct here. So I was threatening queen takes queen with check. It was because of this threat that I played check moves with white. Okay. Anyway, we've got some action. b5, king b1, b4, knight check, bishop takes, pawn takes. Okay. I really don't know why white spent a tempo on king b1. But we definitely have an interesting position still on our hands. And we've got two other potentially interesting positions on our hands. Let's have a quick look. This position here is exactly what we thought it would be a bunch of moves ago, right? They've actually made a bunch of moves. It just hasn't changed the position too much, right? Back and forth a bunch. But basically, the bishop c3 is still pretty good, and white's still got the extra pawn. The decisive phase is still coming. And then our other game, is a most enticing endgame with many minor pieces. Yeah, futurity. That was a way to try and get rated. There were tournaments that were not to get like norms or titles, but just to try and earn a rating. Was there bishop f6? Okay, so somebody says black always has rook c3 now. I mean, white could take back with the queen with check. Queen takes, pawn takes, and then play rook versus knight. White's a little bit low on material to win. It's true that these kind of positions, these kind of endgames here are like very hard to win for the rook against the knight and pawn. Very hard to win. But, I mean, technically, white would still have to be better in that position. So black played queen a5. White starts to dismantle that king's position. Another move that comes into view is rook g5 to take the knight. But I imagine black's generally just going to play rook c5 and trade the rook. Is knight f4 viable? F6 here. Yeah, that makes sense, Foos. There should be rated players for the other people to get ratings against. Sometimes futurities were run with a pairing system that's called Scheveningen pairings. There's also a Sicilian variation named after that. And that's where you've got one team that have ratings and one team that don't have ratings. And you only play everybody on the other team. So if there's like 5 players on each team, you would play white and black against each player on the other team, and they would each play white and black against each player on your team. It'd be a 10-round tournament to get people rated. That's also how a lot of norm tournaments used to be run, right? So you'd have like 5 like NMs or FMs on one side, right? And then 5 IMs on the other side, and they would play like that to try and like aim for an IM norm. You guys would have all played f6. Okay. It diffuses the attack. Certainly looks like a reasonable move. But it does mean that black can't play like the endgames anymore, right? The move that occurs to me to play next here as white is rook g4, allowing this rook to develop. Going here, covering squares in the center. This rook's coming to e1 next. So does it diffuse the attack? Sort of. It also leaves white up a pawn, and of course, Cobra King. I bet a lot of people are feeling some mixture of the same things you're talking about. Okay, rook g5, rook c5 got played. I think black can trade one rook and then put the other rook on c5, and we're not going to get mated today, folks. It's going to be a full game with opening, middle game, and end game. Black's feeling confident, launches the knight into f4. Phew. Looks sound as far as everything I've calculated in the first couple seconds here. No sack mate. Sorry, Wrath of Gods. Queen d2 with b4 right away, huh? There's not necessarily a way to not be scared, Cobra King, but you just have to go anyway. Do your best. Have fun. The more you do it, the less you'll be scared. Once you've lost, which is sort of the worst thing that can happen, once you've gone and lost, then you won't be as afraid of losing the next time. And I mean, if you're 500, you're still, thousands of losses away from mastery. You've got to go through the losses to get good. That's the path. I mean, you don't have to seek losses by trying to lose your games, but you can know that the losses are waiting for you. Queen e3 is what I would have played. I don't know why, but that was my instinct here as well. Clicking around, what's happening here? A rook trade, a minor piece trade. White's still up one pawn, and is this pawn like a secondary small weakness? Yes, I suppose so. Is rook d8 good? That's the big question. King here, queen g8, king comes out. That seems really nice for white. And if the rook blocks, then you can trade it and take on b7 with 2 extra pawns. Yeah, I think rook d8 looks winning. I would second Wrath of Gods, Cobra. You're allowed to cry. You're allowed to cry. Rook comes into d8. Wow. This one's crazy. We don't even have an evaluation for this game. Nice move. Nice move. If it were white's move, which I started looking at it for white to play, bishop e4 would be a little bit annoying for black. But this move deals with it by then just playing knight d5, hitting this. And if white trades, black's very happy in this same colored bishop endgame. Probably push ahead e4 here, but bishop c7 is good too, actually. Bishop c7, and if takes, right, check here, GG. So actually, bishop c7 was really strong here. Really strong. e4 was played, though. These games are all coming down to the wire. Does Magnus cry? I don't know if he does, Cobra King. I don't know. This pawn keeps running. Now this king's going to run to catch up. Okay, white has sort of saved themselves. They avoided a complete debacle by getting the king back here. And now the bishop on h4 can be dug out. I think bishop c7 was important. Right at this point here is a very, very important improvement on how black played the game. Bishop c7, I think that would have won the game right there. Right? And in the game, it's not so clear what scope of an advantage black has here. The bishop's defending both pawns at once. So black can bring the king towards d5. Black can play h5 as well. White can play king d3 and chase the bishop back. Yeah, then the bishop on h4 will be attacking f6. Yeah, so that's how white's going to try and draw the game. Oh! This game just ended. White won. White won. Folks. This extremely intense game. Rook e5, knight e4. The reason to move the queen was not so much to attack e7 as to be allowed to move the knight. e7 was incidental. Knight e4. Cutting off defense of the knight. The knight can't move because of g6. Or I mean, if the knight moves, you got to deal with rook g6 check, right? So takes. Rook g5, rook g5. Oh, and black's just down a rook. Wow, white just won this in like 2 moves from where we were. This position was complicated. I had sort of thought that e5 would get played here, but I hadn't like looked at it in any depth. But I think we left this game at queen e3 and black was thinking, and I said I would have played queen e3, but e5? Race to GM says h5. You guys had analyzed this a little bit. Oh, you guys are talking about what your plan was. You just popped in from playing your game. E5, knight e2 is another option. With the comment that it looks grim. Mario just wants to bail with rook c3. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to bail with rook c3, right? Because this knight's dangling here. Rook c3. I mean, what if they don't even take right away, right? What if white plays this move? I'm not saying white would have. There's also queen e7 check, folks. Which might be the most decisive of all options. Yeah, I don't know that we can play rook c3 here. I'm guessing that one of these two moves would end black. Even rook g6 is interesting. Like this, right? I guess king here, actually, and the rook's covering queen g5, so there's no mate. But still, after this move, be here, here, and this move. Okay, so rook c3, queen e7 check, king here, and pawn takes. I mean, queen g7 doesn't save black at all in this position, right? White can just win that endgame with rook against knight. I looked at rook h5 even in this position. It almost mates by surprise, but doesn't. It's a bit messy, but rook e5, knight e4. Now this was threatened, and this is what it needs to defend. So here I think black really is falling apart at this point. The other games are finishing as we watch this, because this is all black won by resignation? Hang on. Sorry, so we saw here, rook d8, king here, check here. Queen just came back. Huh, I was expecting rook d4 in this position. Oh my god. So, intense. I guess, just taking this pawn at some point was correct, probably, right? Rook e8 looks strong. Rook d8. Oh, yeah, to bring that rook to d7. Did you calculate queen e5, though? Cheesy's agreeing that just taking on h4 might have been correct. Oh, Dritman's game just ended as well. Isn't the end game winning? Yeah, this endgame is winning, Wrath of Gods, but not for white. Do you know who it's winning for? It's the law of elimination. When every possible person who might win this game has been considered, the last possibility, however unlikely, is that black's going to win. I'm just playing around. But yeah, queen e5's an issue, so I think white needs to just get this pawn back. And now rook e4 becomes a pretty good threat. Like, I think if black tries to keep the pawn chain rolling, the pawn munching train, then this move probably just finishes black off, unfortunately. Once you've taken this pawn, if black goes queen e5, now black's playing a rook endgame down a pawn. So white's got winning chances, but also not winning yet, right? I mean, I don't mean not winning like they can't win, but I mean, we don't yet know if it's winning or not, right? It's just a cool thing. So, Daster wants me to check out the game of Daster and Drit. All right, Race to GM knows it better than me. Easy draw for Race to GM. Has anyone else noticed how often non-titled players know the result of a position faster than titled players? Anyone else notice that? While Jesse Cry would still be going like, I wonder what's going on here. Any number of 1600s and 1800s and 600s and 1300s could tell you for sure the result of the position. Yeah. Cheesy Driver says rook h4 is a blunder. The correct move is queen h5. I mean, I don't know if rook h4 is a blunder. It looks fine, but queen h5 looks pretty winning. Oops. Queen h5 looks very strong. Yeah, well, this was a very well played game by both sides. I mean, black's opening just playing that c5 move, right? When you're on the back foot as black, that move got black into hot water. They lost a pawn almost immediately and then just didn't give an inch for 35 more moves. They just stopped giving any inches. They're like, we give no inches. We give no pawns. We give no nothing. And this bishop move was a mouse slip, apparently, and a typo at the same time. Is there a good portmanteau for a mouse slip typo? After this, black gave up nothing and just defended like crazy. And white was gradually winning anyway. The transition to the queen and rook, getting the rook to the 8th rank, it was winning, but gosh, not easy to put away. All right, so let's check the one game we haven't checked nearly as much. Because otherwise, if Baron or Gorkum or Daster or Dritman go back to the VOD, they will be disappointed to see minimal commentary on their game. So let's look at their game a little bit right now. Okay, so we had this position here. Takes here. Bishop here. Okay, correctly understanding that after king d3. Wow, they settled down and thought for a minute here, even though it was like almost the end of the game. They spent a minute out of their 1 minute and 40 seconds on this move here, bishop c3. They correctly understood that after king d3, the bishop was going to be forced to choose between these pawns. It can't go after this anymore, so you come somewhere like this, and now your king is tied to this, so how do you win? It's not clear how black ever wins this. Wow. So they went for this, and the idea is just to switch which pawn it is to a way outside pass pawn. The bishop could come somewhere like e7, move this, king's got to go, bishop's covering this. This bishop can safely cover both pawns from e7. Sorry, let me change this to b4. That's key, that the bishop can cover the pawns on both sides of the board from e7, and that frees the black king to do any maneuver it wants. Meanwhile, white's bishop has to guard this pawn, and the king has to guard this pawn. So this should just be a win for black. Mathematical. So this was really good, bishop c3. This was critical. Hang on, folks. We're going to have to take a short, like a 3-second fix here. Give me a second. I've got a problematic situation here. With my computer. It's not going to take me long to fix it. Okay. Yeah, eventually the black king can get into the game through here, as they're saying. Okay, we're gonna call this road to 1400. Pick up G45s 5 19 21. Then go here, delete it. Here, empty recycle bin. Here. Now we're sort of okay. Sorry to do this on air. I just hadn't kept up with my computer situation. Got to take care of my files. Computer's filling up. I have to transfer them now and then between disks. All right, we'll use a poll to determine the answer to Falk's question. If you guys want us to stay up for a third round of this, people not in the US for whom the first game or two was too early, let me know. I'll stay up for you. 2 a.m. in Texas, 3 a.m. in Miami. Yeah, my number one advice, Cheesy, is to play a classical game, OTB, between now and then. That's it. I saw you withdrew from the May-June tournament, which I think is like the opposite of how I would prepare for it. The best thing you can do in these situations is just try to replicate the situation you're going to be in as well as you can and do 1 or 2 practice reps. That's the best. But, I mean, even outside of the May-June tournament, you can find someone to play a classical training game with you. Leafia is untired at 2 a.m. It's crazy. You guys are wired. You guys are wired. Anyway, it looks like we do not have a quorum to play another match. So that'll be the last round. We're going to look at this game here. This was a fantastic move. So in the game, White tried to fight fate with bishop e1, but now the h-pawn is just winning the endgame. Got it. Really fantastic finish in that endgame by Drit and Daster for sure. Let's see some more of this. Let's see more of this later on. Ash Challenge Chestermerks. Howdy, welcome. Great to have some new people. You're very welcome here. Do you know what Chess Dojo is about, or do you need someone to tell you? All right. Good night. A bientôt. We'll hopefully see you on the Gauntlet or in some other kind of collab sometime soon. Thanks for bringing your raid to us, as well as sticking around and analyzing. We're going to look further into this Dritman Baron game because I missed so much of it. So that's still on our agenda. Then maybe we'll check out a cool study from Wrath of Gods, and then we'll wrap it up. Ash Challenges. What we are about, number one, is a positive, friendly community. Number two, growth mindset. Lots of educational content here, but really like, keeping like a positive attitude as we try and learn together. And because I believe that a lot of improvement comes from actually playing, there's a fair bit of emphasis on us running events for dojoers to participate in. So chances for people to practice, and then chances to like look over their games. So we do like shows where we look at games people have played. Just now people were playing games, and then, as you see, we're looking at the games. We spend more time looking at viewer games than at GM games. My partner tonight was just asking me like, maybe we need to look at more like GM games and super GM games instead of like viewer games. Maybe that's like a fault. Maybe we've been like going too far into like looking at the kind of games that you all are more likely to play yourselves than GM games. Maybe there's a lot of people looking for, really like high quality games and they want to see more of that. I don't know, but that was her thought today. But anyway, we do have a pretty strong, a pretty high amount of time spent on, games played by players between, let's say, like 600 and 2200 is kind of like where the bulk of our viewers are. So we do spend a lot of time on that, but we do also try to provide variety. So we try and provide, private lessons and tournaments and blitz chess and rapid chess and classical chess and looking at viewer games and looking at our own games. Sometimes there's 3 teachers who run this channel together, IMs and GMs. Sometimes we come on and we just study whatever we would be studying. And you guys, some of you may have like 90% of it go over your head, and sometimes we do that, and other times we come on and we teach like, a 700 something, and it's, and then for the players on here who are rated 2000, it's a chance for them to see like, how do you teach chess maybe, right? Because they already know what we're teaching. So, we try to have like a variety. We try to come up with some cool like chess game shows as well. We've got a talk show and so forth. So I will gladly look at Dubov games. Falk's looking for what? A collection of studies that are friendly for lower rated players. Oh, I don't know the answer, Falk. So thank goodness we've got an answer from Cheesy recommending play chess the right way. Because I don't know a good collection of endgame studies that are accessible for non-masters. I mean, all the endgame studies I've seen pretty much like blow my own brains out and short my circuits. Yeah, I was doing a lot more training for myself back then, Alexa, and like less like teaching. Now we're doing so much teaching and not that much training of myself. I'm only doing training for myself maybe like one session a week for 2 or 3 hours. The consultation matches have just finished Ash Challenges. Yeah, so those are done for today. That was today's activity. Now we're just sort of going to go over one more game and wrap up. Yeah, solitaire chess, exactly. Yeah, solitaire chess was a lot of work. I'm glad that people liked it and want to do that kind of work as well. Alrighty, so let's get into this game now. So I saw it here, then the players went into the tank, 4 minutes to play knight a5, minute and a half for bishop b7. If you play knight a5, by the way, Dread and Daster, you should know what your next move is, because white's next move is bishop c2. So if you're going to play this, I would say plan your next move, probably, when you play it. Like, I'm fine with, 4 or 5 minutes on a move, but I think a lot of the times, if you're going to invest a lot of time in one move, you should have, like, 1 or 2 quick moves that come right after it, like follow-ups. Unless your opponent does something that was really like weird or hard to predict. Of course, anytime you're surprised by an opponent's move, it's recommended to stop and use some time. But I mean, a minute and a half double checking bishop b7, that's a lot of double checking. Wouldn't you say, Daster? I mean, like, this is not a tactical position. It's just a question of, was your plan to play c5 or bishop here or something else, right? Like, that I can't guess. There's only so much to it. Yeah. I mean, for me, if I play knight a5 and my opponent plays bishop c2, I play this move in, I mean, just like the time to execute it physically. I'm not like in a rush to like pre-move them or anything, but I've got nothing to like think about. I'm just finishing my next move. Yeah, there is takes, queen trade, try to win the pawn, rook e8. Yeah, that's the thing to calculate, I guess. But anyway, I mean, you sort of plan it here and then you go with it. You believe yourself at some point. Okay, your opponents did do that and then played bishop g5, not knight e5, where I imagine this move here was pretty sound. I mean, it just seems white's got this, right? Like, how are they going to win a pawn with 2 open files in the center? I'm not even going to calculate it. Would a4 not be a consideration here for white? No. I don't think so. You would take this, and then maybe play here, attacking e4 instead of defending b5. And there's nothing for white. White's not going to give up that light squared bishop. No. It always tucks in the Rui. That bishop always tucks, pretty much. Yeah. You're right, Baron. I don't know how much effort you guys spent calculating knight takes e5 here. I wouldn't spend too much effort on it just because it's so implausible. It's just so implausible. You regretted the queen trade because you had done it hoping to win the e-pawn, but then didn't think you could do it. So you guys weren't really sure when you were going for d5, queen d8. Yeah, I mean, and I agree. The moves you've just played only make sense if knight takes e5 is good for white here. Otherwise, there's no reason to trade this pawn for this pawn. Any advantage white might have in this position is based on that, right? I mean, you don't have a development lead. You don't have anything else. You know, the bishop's not like amazing yet. You're just hanging on to it. But any advantage you have is based on this d4 pawn. So when you trade, if you can't win the pawn, you've thrown away your opening advantage, at least. So this happened. You guys just played h6, saying like, take out my structure, please. I want it ruined. What? Nice one, Daster. Thank you. I do need to be entertained by chat. This was another regret that you guys didn't just take it. Well, why aren't they playing h6? They just bullied you with h6. They were like, your move is so dumb, we play h6. And you guys were like, okay. I mean, even if bishop f6, gf6 is not a problem, you don't need to spend a move on h6. That's wild. That's a wild little moment here. I mean, positionally, it's not the Yugoslav dragon wild, but oh, you were willing to tuck here and try and pressure e5. I see. Thought it was like fine somehow. Okay, I don't necessarily know what you should do, but h6 looks pretty weird. Basically, I'm looking at knight c4 at the moment, but I'm just trying to slowly like figure out what's going on in this position. Some of you may recall that the Rui Lopez is like pretty much my worst opening. Yeah, rook d6 I considered as well. You know, Wrath of Gods, in the game that that we looked at on the post-mortem on Tuesday, that was in this same modern Archangel defense, Sombrero, that's his main opening. Sombrero played, you know, knight a5 and then bishop b7 and then later c5 as well. So, and he got an okay position with it. It seemed playable. I was surprised by it at first as well because I thought the c5 pawn just kind of blocks the bishop. White can close up the center with d5, but we found that black still had a reasonable position after playing c5, c4 in response to d4, d5. If that all makes sense to you as a strong player who can follow stuff blindfolded. I mean, I didn't know it 2 days ago, and when I saw it, I didn't believe it. We analyzed it for a while, and I sort of believe it now. Okay, so most obvious move's got to be knight c4, then b3 in order to play this. Knight here. Now the bishop's lost this at least. Knight d2. This is defended. And this could still come in. And what are we trying to do? You know what? This bishop g5 is not bad as long as you're willing to take on f6. It's actually a little bit of an annoyance for black. Because the position is stodgy. Huh. What do you know? What do you know? So maybe it is just rook d6 that's correct here. And then we have to recalculate this whole knight e5 thing as well. It may even be easier to calculate here than before. Knight takes, here, check, here, f6. You get back your piece in some way, and your rook's on the first rank. So just a rough guess that white's lost. Yeah, so these bishop g5 moves, we've been talking about these a lot recently, Baron. People have been asking about it. It's come up a bunch of times. We've been talking about it. So bishop g5. Rarely do you play this move unless you're willing to take it. However, we had a game earlier today by Michiko on her first game in the consultations where black played h6 and she just brought the bishop back. It was not this Rui Lopez. It was like an English opening. But the point was it was a game where black did not have a light squared bishop. And playing h6 was slightly weakening black's light squares. So instead of playing bishop e3 in one move, in that game it was actually fine to go bishop g5 and then if h6 just come back and say that move weakened the opponent. So you're not 100% committed to take the knight if you do this. But generally speaking, in most games, if you play bishop b5 or bishop g5 and your opponent answers with a6 or h6, generally you're willing, like if given that tempo of them moving the rook pawn, generally you're willing to make the trade. Most often. You definitely don't want to play bishop g5 if your opponent plays h6 and it's good for them and then you just retreat. Right? But there's a lot of different scenarios. I mean, sometimes you come back this way and you keep the pressure and g5 is bad for them. So that's the time when you allow h6. Other times you come back and it's a weakness. Other times you are willing to trade. It's actually an extremely complicated topic. There's not a one or two sentence way. There's not a one or two sentence way to explain when you should or shouldn't play bishop g5 or b5 and when you should or shouldn't trade and when you should or shouldn't play h6 as the person facing the bishop. So yeah. Well, I'm thinking now like rook d6 should be right to not get your pawns doubled here. That's my feeling at the moment. But okay, we'll run with the game. This was happened. White didn't take. I'm pretty sure you guys should have taken. I mean, it's with tempo. Then you play knight bd2. Then you maneuver your knight. If the idea is counterplay on the g file for black, maybe. Should we investigate briefly what kind of counterplay we're talking here? Rook takes g3. Phew! I played it before chat yelled at me. Okay. Takes, here, here, here. Man, knight g3 would be so ideal if we could do it. Block the g file, overprotect e4, and control f5 and h5. Man, I wish we could play that. On knight e3, black can go trade here, here. And it's black found their counterplay. And, you know, this position's not good for white either. It may not be atrocious, but it's certainly not going to be good. Okay, it's pretty atrocious. Because here, you threaten the e-pawn and white can't trade because of g2. If king h2, bishop takes f2. Dang. It is pretty impressive that you guys saw all of this. I will give you that. That showed some deep, deep understanding. Okay, but there's no threat yet on the g file, right? So as white, let's just be reasonable about this. Let's develop the rook on a1 to the open file. Challenge it. Ask black if they're playing on the g file or the d file. That's possible as well, race to GM. It's just not the next idea I would look at. Knight h4 might be the best move. We just haven't gotten to it yet. a4 doesn't threaten much for white here, and it takes away bishop b3. So I'm just going to go rook d1 for the moment. Yeah, you guys definitely can record what you do. That can be very, very useful to record your own self playing your games, then go back and look over it. So now we need to know whether Daster and Drit were going to like fight for the D file or save rooks for the G file by like just stepping away, or try to hold on to both at once. Play knight c4. Knight a3 to contest the D file faster. I don't think there's a rush, Foos. The knight on a3 is going to take so long to get to a good square. I would be pretty confident this is better first. Okay, so let's say you keep the rooks. Wrath of Gods, it's because I need my rook to defend f2 in order to untangle my king, in order to develop my knight. And knight c4 is always a problem with my bishop on c2. If to stop knight c4 I play b2, b3 with my bishop still on c2, then I feel like b3 has killed my bishop badly enough that I'm not like pumped to keep it. I'm in like a 12-step program to play knight g3. If white gets to consolidate, yeah, you'd be right to take white eventually. Bishop c8, king h1, and just sack the bishop here. The king's coming to h2 instead of h1, so it's going to be even harder to get a good sack off on h3. White's getting pretty close to consolidation. Anybody have an idea for black here to try and prevent that eventuality? Does anyone have the sense this is like a critical moment for black? Would you stop and think hard if this were your game? So Wrath of Gods, did I help you to find that at all, or would you have been looking for that on your own? Was that a little bit of like a hint from me, or you knew? You'd be thinking a long time. Basically, black's got one move left. Black's one move away from done. Pretty much. But they've got F5. Yeah. It's the move that brings everything black has together. But if black doesn't find that move, like one move away and like it's over, white just wins. And, you know, the dead bishop springs to life, and the rooks managed to actually make an impression on G2, which was looking kind of hopeless for them, right? Yeah. This is like my move D5 in a game I showed on stream from a Nightorf. See if you guys remember this. So this game here, sorry, I need to get into the moves. This game here, white engaged in like a really long maneuver to gain control over the D5 square. Queen F3, knight C4, knight E3. Now white's one move away from occupying D5 with a knight, or F5 with a knight, or playing bishop C4 and clamping the square forever. Right? Is one move away from being done. And this is how, you know, you can lead yourself to finding like really good moves sometimes, right? Is like recognizing that like if you don't have something, you're about to be done. Right? And so in this position, the answer is D5. Right? Otherwise, you're done. And then from here, black gets like a great, you know, exciting game. I mean, there's like 100 variations. I'm not going to tell you guys about it. But the point is, white's about to occupy D5, which will be like the death knell for black. And black just plays D5 first. Right? So that's the same idea we've got here. Right? Is this whole game, like black's like, oh God, there's going to be a knight on F5 and I'm going to be done for. And right there, you play F5 first. Boom. When white's not quite ready to occupy it. And that refutes this variation I just tried. Okay. So here, rook f8, keeping the rooks on the board. This is intense. It's not easy to handle. We had a suggestion of b3, knight h4. All right, that was another suggestion for how to play this for white. In general, we can't play g4 for white because of h5 from black. I guess the advantage of b3 is that temporarily this knight does nothing, but temporarily this bishop at least defends a pawn, despite being a dumb-looking piece. Now what are we looking? We're looking at getting a knight on f5. Rook on d7. You know, Scott, I think Kostya plus me talking together would definitely be stronger than Jesse. I think that consultation is pretty strong, but I don't actually know it, so it might be interesting to try it once. That's really just like a completely like random guess because I don't have any data on it. But I think like Kostya plus me talking, like the odds of like us blundering tactically would go down like so much. And then, like, if we play like a long game with Jesse where we're not making mistakes, it would be hard for him to never make a mistake playing on his own. Well, Wrath of Gods points out we could also just plop this knight on d5. That could be good too. I mean, my suspicion is that this shouldn't quite work out for black, but who knows? Have we tried f5 here? I mean, it's asking a lot of our position as black. Counter check. Yeah, but we got this anyway. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, guys, we're not going to spend 2 hours on this one thing. I just wanted to get a feel for what kind of counterplay you did or didn't have, what kind of play you did or did not have on the G file here. I would say it was more than I expected, but I still don't fully believe this h6 move. And if not h6, then of course rook d6 is a plausible alternative for you guys, just bringing the second rook here or playing h6 when you can recapture with the rook. And I imagine your opening's very sound. Okay, so you guys sidelined the bishop with g5. Now there's this huge question. Is the bishop pressuring e5 or is the bishop garbage? But I think by now we all know the answer, right? The answer is the bishop was garbage. I think even from the snippets of the games that we've seen, I think the players playing white and black and the audience all know the answer to this question. No offense to, you know, Baron or Gorkum or anybody who liked white's opening, but I think we all figured it out at this point. Black can just play f6 and that bishop is not in good shape. So that's another reason to take on f6 is that bishop h4 wasn't very good. All right, so white is the one playing to defend or save here at this point. I don't believe a4 accomplishes much. I would be focused on plopping a knight on f5, which I guess white did at some point, and you guys traded it, and that's how they got tripled pawns probably. That was probably part of the story. Perhaps most of all the bishop on g3 knows the story. If you ask the bishop on g3, it'll tell you. You all expected just rook d1, kind of simple move. That makes sense for sure. This approach also makes sense by Baron and Gorkum. I mean, they just like equalize the queenside situation, keep this knight sort of controlled by the c3, b4 structure. It's just keeping this queenside a little more tame while this bishop can't yet participate, and white's going to need a lot of time. So let's see what gets generated. A rook trade is no problem. But this trade may actually exacerbate white's problems. Yeah, actually, knight f5. I said, like, white needs to be looking for knight f5. But it looks like it just can't be done here because Drit and Daster have put this knight on e7. It leaves white with kind of nothing to do. Right, we'd like to play f3 and bishop f2. We're prevented by the fact that the knight's here and the bishop's here. Yeah, you guys played 97 just to do it. It's good. Yeah, it's another 12-step plan, Wrath of Gods. Absolutely. Bishop b3, knight d5. Yeah, that could be something. Man, I love playing games like this. Daster and Drit, you guys must be in the clouds to have played like a full strategic game with an endgame and everything. Oh, man. Yeah. This is high class. You played 97 just to stop white from doing the thing they would want to do, even though your knight seems passive there. But Dritman was super right about it, Daster, because, you know, for one thing, like the knight on c6 was not actually well placed against the c3, b4 pawn structure. It's like, I know the knight on c6 is more forward, more up the board than a knight on e7. Man, this is classy, you guys. Knight e7 here. I know the knight is more up the board on c6, more forward, right? But like this knight on c6 is just as passive as on e7, right? It's not making the knight more passive. It's not passivizing the knight or pacifying the knight. Wow, it's just stopping white's idea. And white still went for their idea because white was pretty low on ideas and lost for it. So if you kind of like tried to stop the idea and they're so low on ideas that they just kind of like tried it anyway, that tells you like how important the knight f5 idea was, and it's really good to prevent something like that. So, I mean, what does white have other than this? Well, the 12-step program for this bishop, right? That would be king coming to e2. Knight moving maybe to h2, g4, maybe just to d2, and then f3, bishop f2. Should we see if we can save white at all here? Let's start with this. Tickle. Tickle. Yeah, that's great. That's the kind of stuff you can talk about on the opponent's moves too, right? Like when their time's ticking, you can say like, long term, you know, what are we going to do about the f5 square? You know, if they start moving a knight there, what's the plan and so forth, right? Okay, first we tickle. I suppose black doesn't need to defend in any, like, black could play a move like knight f8 or something here, and if bishop b5, bishop e4. C6 would be unpleasant for black. I don't think that their team's going to play c6. So they're pretty much looking at bishop c6 or knight f8 probably. My instinct is knight f8. If we want to say like, hey, white, we're going to win this game, then I think we may need to operate with moves like this. Okay, I'm going to ignore that pawn for the moment. Do-do-do. I did, Scott. I haven't looked like deeply into it, but I saw that it exists. I tried out a couple of the rook and pawns yesterday. I'll have to do a more thorough look before I can offer any kind of like opinion on it. Oh, one might even have knight g4 attacking 2 pawns. I guess black would have to play king g7 defending both pawns. I'm still struggling to figure out how black really improves this position. So if you still have rooks on the board, then you can often use a plan like knight f4 to increase your advantage. I know this is like their terrible bishop, but if you've got rooks on the board, sometimes you can, the space of the f pawn and then the g file can be a way to increase your advantage. I know, ironically, trading their worst piece, but it can be crushing. But here, without rooks on the board, you don't gain that much. Provides some drawing chances, Wrath of Gods. It seems a little bit desperate to me at the moment. Like, we have to come up with a winning plan for black before we play something desperate for white. If we have a winning plan for black, then we can play desperate moves. The rooks were probably about equally good for white or black. I'm not really sure. I mean, just on like, what each rook was doing basis, the rooks were pretty equal. What the rooks can do, what each side, what potential or ideas the rooks add for each side may be different. And since black has the advantage, maybe favoring black here. But yeah, I'm not really coming up with a plan here. I don't see a way for black to win, actually, here, guys. Which is making me think that trading off rooks actually decreased black's advantage. We can play c5, but white even has bishop takes b5 winning a pawn at the moment. So how do we play c5? We'd have to move the knight away first, right? We'd have to play a move like knight f8 like I did. Then after king here, now play c5? I suppose. Can't just grind it out, moving the king to the queen side. I mean, yeah, as far as like grinding it out, white's going to do this, and you're coming here. I don't know where you're going with the grinding, but you haven't achieved anything yet. The white pieces can get to that side. Oh, bishop takes b5 is a problem. So now at some point you have to play bishop c6 or c6 as black here. So probably you choose this one. F3. I don't know. There's always this pawn to defend if the king wanders all the way over here. Although even if the king wanders over here, there's not like a route into the position for the king. I don't yet see where you're supposed to, win the game, basically. I mean, it's not like 100% a deadlock, but I'm not seeing a lot of good plans for either side. There's still ideas. There's stuff like maybe like knight g6, threatening the pawn. If it advances, knight f4 check, winning the bishop. I mean, whenever you do this, you have to count on this. But here, I guess we still win a piece. So maybe there's an idea of knight g6 that we could add to the list of things we're looking at. Here the king could still go here in case of a check, but it could lose a pawn. That'll lose a pawn. Yeah, I mean, you can see there's still stuff to do. But yeah, I think if you just leave your rooks on the board, you've got more things to do, probably. So here, in this position, this rook, it's not doing anything without one of these bishops getting traded, and I don't yet see how white trades a bishop. So maybe, you go here. I think white's going to maybe try and trade rooks. But you could switch to the A file. Ooh, and they can't give you the A file, right? So like here, just for argument's sake, let's say this happens, right? And you continue maneuvering. White can't play the second rook to A1 after trading, nor can they let your rook come here because they don't have this bishop here to cover all these squares, right? So this rook's going to be able to assume like an aggressive position where it attacks something. So yeah, I think you should probably keep the rooks on and keep maneuvering. I think you're in good shape if you do. So in the game, you played the rook trades. White played knight f5. You take. Now this like tripled thing is really problematic. You traded here, making it past h pawn. I think that's very clever. Maybe bishop e4 right away for white here. Looks like that might save the game at this point. G takes h4. Yeah, it was a great move. This move might still be okay because on c5, we want to play bishop b5 for white, right? Kick the knight and just take the pawn on b5. So here, knight b8. And now I guess white's still a little bit worse. If bishop g3, you play bishop c7 to stop it from breaking out. Here's Wrath of God's line, c5. Oh, sorry. Bishop d3. Right, okay, so here bishop e4. c5. Bishop c6 takes here. It's a close call. Yeah. But here's an important thing to realize about this as well, Wrath of Gods. A lot of times when I look at variations like this in my games and I come up with something, and let's say it does work, like the pawn does save, right? Actually, Wrath of Gods, look, here. Here instead of pushing. See? Let's say this does work in the tactical variation. What I often used to forget to calculate, and maybe I still would, is that after this move here, and I take, instead of taking the p sack and going into some complicated variation, sometimes they just recapture. And then I'm like, oh, my knight's still hanging, and it still doesn't have anywhere I actually want to put it, right? And I'm like, what? I've had a lot of games where like I messed up by missing something of that sort, you know, having like a complicated tactical idea, but they can actually just sort of like recapture, not go into the crazy idea, and then I still have to make the concession. That's like a very common mistake I used to make. So I think bishop e4 has some chances of saving the game here, forcing knight to b8 at the moment. The knight's not very good there. c5's not super threatening here at this point. Bishop g3, bishop c7 still keeps black potentially with an advantage, but the king has to try and find some way to help this bishop find an escape. It's still a lot of work. Maybe if the king came to g4, you could eventually play bishop g3, f4. I don't know. Yeah, I know that, Wrath of Gods. You know, in chat, in analysis on other people's games, you can toss out variations much faster than in tournaments. Anyway, I genuinely miss stuff like that in OTB myself a lot. e4, fe4, knight e5. Show me that, Mario. Here. Where are we playing e4? Like here, Mario? So if pawn takes, knight e5, bishop e2. I mean, that lets the bishop get out. No, I don't think it's here. Okay, anyway, let's say that white has some chance there with bishop e4, but worked on the king first. And this is where we picked up. We saw you guys play knight b6, and I was thinking bishop e4 might save the game for white. And then you guys played this. I was like, oh, it's black's move. Well, in that case, this is probably winning for black. Yeah. Good, unconventional. How about you? Daster and Drit, I just want to show you one thing that I mentioned in the post-mortem. What you did worked out really well, but sorry. One thing that you might find in the VOD, but I told you not to really look at the VOD because I didn't look at your game much. But one thing I noticed during the game live was that this move might have been even better than what you did. I mean, what you did seemed to win. But anyway, I don't know if you guys thought about this. This seems like a pretty interesting move for black. The idea is to get this bishop to e5. And it's pretty hard to prevent for white right now. I don't see how white prevents it, because your idea is to actually take. Whether or not white takes on e5, you'll take, and then you'll put your bishop on e5. All right, Wrath of Gods. In the game, they played here, 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 here. Right? So their bishop wasn't on c7 to take this, right? But you thought they should play this. And then if white goes here, is there any specific win for black immediately? You thought the bishop was already on c7, yeah. So I think actually in the game against f4, this move is like surprisingly strong. Like first it was just like I was like, huh, that's a possible move. But the more I've looked at it, the more it's like, well, that sort of ends the game. And I don't expect it to, so I'm kind of like surprised. I'm like, is that really as good as it's looking like it is? But it seems to just be winning the game. I mean, here's like exhibit A, although it's a very like naive move from white. But then we can try and come up with some other move for white. You know, here, okay. Can't save this one. Already down one pawn, right? Maybe here, and then if takes, there's king here. Maybe there's still some hope for white, actually. Maybe still some hope. But, I mean, white is down a pawn for nothing. Black's got a second passed pawn versus a double isolated pawn. And this bishop's still here, and this pawn's on a dark square. I mean, it's not obvious, but I would guess that it's over. And then, so alternatively here, if white plays something else, we just take, and then we get our bishop to e5. So, I mean, it seems like if this bishop gets here, that's the end of the game. There's like 2 entire pawns to pluck almost while this bishop's on h4. So, while what you did seem to win the game and did seem to be really good, my guess would be if we turn on the computer, it's going to say the bishop c7 is like the best move by like 1 or 2 points at this point here, when it's not yet evaluating every move as being like plus 500, when it hasn't yet seen to the end of the game. It's going to think like bishop c7 is the strongest move here, I think. Anyway. Not sure, but that's a thought on that. All right, folks. I think we had a lot of time with these consultation games. They don't seem to be the most popular things. They'll be a rare treat for those of you who enjoy them. But realize that you also don't need me to organize the things that you want to do. If you want to play a consultation game, you can always just let somebody know that you want to play a consultation game and set up a single game on your own, right? You don't need a whole tournament to do any of this, right? Like Daster could just send a message to Drit saying, hey, it's been a couple weeks, want to play a consultation game again? And Drit will say, yeah, there's 2 people from my group who would probably play against us, you know? And you guys can always do whatever you like. But, you know, in terms of what events I'm going to organize, I am going to listen to attendance to some extent. I mean, I'm going to keep innovating and doing what I like and what's fun for me. But I am also, you know, when I'm creating playing opportunities like, you know, quads or pickup games or a blitz tournament or a classical tournament, I am listening to how many people sign up to tell me which ones I should do more of in the future. That's kind of normal, I imagine, right? So, yeah. All right, that's what we got for today. You guys have any thoughts on where we should be rating? Yeah, it's been a little bit. Alrighty, guys. Take care. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm sure we got some shows scheduled for tomorrow. I think tomorrow's the day where I study. The rare day. So, see you all then. Be well.